You may feel completely fine right now, with no pain, no pressure, and no warning signs at all. And because of that, it becomes very easy to assume that your heart and your arteries are working exactly the way they should, because your body feels stable, your energy feels normal, and nothing in your daily experience suggests that anything is wrong beneath the surface. You wake up, you go through your routine, your breathing feels natural, your movements feel effortless, and everything about your body gives you the impression that it is functioning properly, which leads to a very powerful assumption that if something serious were developing, you would somehow feel it, or at least notice that something had changed. But what most people do not realize is that inside the body, especially inside the arteries that supply blood to the heart, important changes can begin long before you ever feel anything at all. And these changes do not usually start with pain, and they do not begin with a dramatic event, but instead develop slowly, quietly, and almost invisibly over time, without producing any clear signal that something is wrong. And this is exactly what makes the process so dangerous. Because while everything feels normal on the outside, something much more complex and potentially serious may already be happening inside your arteries. Most people imagine heart disease as something simple and mechanical, like a pipe gradually becoming clogged as more material builds up inside it, reducing the space available for blood to flow, until eventually the artery becomes blocked. And this image feels intuitive and easy to understand, because it suggests a slow and predictable progression. But the human body does not behave like a simple pipe, and the most important changes often begin long before any blockage becomes severe enough to be noticed. And in many real cases, the artery is not completely blocked before a heart attack occurs, which means that blood is still flowing, oxygen is still being delivered, and from the outside, everything appears stable and normal. And this is one of the most important ideas to understand, because it explains why serious events can develop even when there are no symptoms, and why relying only on how you feel can be misleading. To understand what is really happening, you have to look deeper, beyond the flow of blood itself, and focus on what is happening inside the walls of the artery, because this is where the process often begins, and it begins in a way that you cannot feel inside the inner lining of an artery. Tiny particles circulating in the bloodstream, especially low-density lipoprotein cholesterol, can sometimes slip beneath the surface. And when this happens, it does not cause pain, and it does not produce any immediate sensation, which means that you do not feel it happening. And there is no clear signal that something unusual has taken place, but your body detects it. Even if you do not, your immune system responds by sending white blood cells to the area, and these cells attempt to absorb and remove the particles. And at first, this response is protective, because it is part of the body's normal defense system, designed to maintain balance and prevent damage. However, as more particles accumulate and more immune cells gather in the same area, the situation begins to change. Because instead of resolving the issue, the process becomes ongoing, and the area becomes inflamed. And this inflammation is not something you can feel directly, but it changes the environment inside the artery wall. As this continues over time, the structure of the artery begins to shift, and the inner lining becomes less stable, while the deeper layers begin to change in ways that make the artery more vulnerable. And this is where the concept of weakening begins to emerge. Because as inflammation persists, the artery does not simply accumulate material. It also loses structural integrity, meaning that it becomes weaker, less stable, and less able to maintain its normal function under pressure. At the same time, the artery also begins to lose flexibility. And this is a critical point that is often overlooked, because healthy arteries are not rigid structures, but flexible ones, capable of expanding and contracting with each heartbeat, which allows them to regulate blood flow and absorb mechanical stress. But as inflammation continues, this flexibility begins to decline, and the artery becomes stiffer, less responsive, and less able to adapt to changes in pressure, which means that instead of absorbing stress, the artery must endure it directly. And this creates a very important shift, because now the pressure from blood flow is no longer distributed evenly, but instead becomes concentrated in weaker areas of the artery wall. And over time, this leads to the formation of stress points. At the same time, plaque begins to form beneath the surface of the artery lining. But this plaque is not always large, and it does not always block blood flow. And in many cases, blood continues to move through the artery relatively normally, which is why there are often no symptoms and why everything still feels fine. But inside that plaque, there is an important structural feature known as the fibrous cap, which is a thin outer layer that separates the inner contents of the plaque from the bloodstream. And this cap plays a critical role in determining whether the plaque remains stable or becomes dangerous. When the fibrous cap is strong, the plaque is relatively stable, and even though it may contribute to long-term narrowing, it is less likely to cause sudden events. But when the cap becomes thin and weakened, the situation changes dramatically, because now the plaque is no longer stable, but vulnerable. Inflammation continues to act on the plaque, gradually weakening this protective layer, while at the same time, the constant pressure from blood flow creates mechanical stress on it. And over time, this combination of biological and physical stress makes the cap increasingly fragile. And this fragility is the key problem. Because even if the plaque is not large enough to block the artery, a thin and weakened cap can rupture suddenly. And when that rupture occurs, it triggers a completely different process. The inner contents of the plaque, which were previously hidden, are suddenly exposed to the bloodstream, and the body reacts immediately as if an injury has occurred, sending platelets to the site, where they begin to stick together and form a clot. This process is fast, automatic, and highly effective in normal situations. But inside an artery, it can have serious consequences, because as the clot forms, it begins to take up space inside the artery, and it can grow rapidly, sometimes within seconds. As it grows, it reduces the space available for blood to flow, and if it becomes large enough, it can block the artery completely, which suddenly stops the flow of oxygen-rich blood to the heart muscle. And without oxygen, heart cells begin to suffer damage very quickly, which is what defines a heart attack. And the entire process, from weakening to rupture to blockage, can happen much faster than most people expect, which is why heart attacks often feel sudden and unexpected. Because before the rupture occurred, blood was still flowing. There were no clear warning signs, and everything seemed normal. And then, in a very short period of time, everything changes.